into the actual theory, let's have a look at a short video which talks about why we all need to be familiar with and learning about building with AI agents. Okay, so this is from Andrew Ng. It's from a recent talk he did at Snowflake about a day ago. I'm just going to play about a minute of this clip. Hopefully,
Now, there's a lot going on in AI, and of all the things going on in AI, in terms of technical trend, the one trend I'm most excited about is agentic AI workflows. And so if you were to ask, what's the one most important AI technology to pay attention to, I would say it's agentic AI.
Okay, so you heard it from the GOAT himself. The one most important thing to pay attention to is agentic AI. And here we are learning about that today. Okay, so back to the slides. What is CrewAI? It's a framework that makes it really easy to get started with building agentic workflows. And they offer a nice illustration on the website explaining the anatomy of a crew. A crew consists of AI agents. You can think of these as team members in a team or a crew. Those agents have a defined set of tasks that are essentially a set of instructions on how to complete a specific process or set of steps. And optionally, we can give access to tools, and tools are a way in which agents can interact with the outside world. So as an example of a tool, it may be the ability to search the web via an API. So that's actually one of the tools we're going to be using today as part of the coursework. Let's head over to the CrewAI website. Let's go to the top. Okay, so documentation. Here it is. I think you just go to Docs, CrewAI. Highly recommend scanning through the documentation. It's not very dense at all. It's very easy to read and follow along. Fairly simplistic. Defines some core concepts. So, what are agents? What are the different parameters that we can configure? What are the tasks? How do we configure crews? And a whole bunch of things. In particular, I would recommend going through the installation guide. It talks about how to set up your workspace. We actually have some instructions we've defined as part of the GitHub repo we'll be stepping through. So you can go here if you like, but we've already done that as part of the README file that we're providing with the repo. There is a quick start guide. I've taken that quick start guide and essentially simplified it for you as part of the README file that's provided in the GitHub repo. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. So now you know where to find the documentation if you get stuck. They have a fairly active community, so if you have any questions or ideas or issues, you can post them here. Okay, back to the slides. Let's talk about the key features of CrewAI. It's agent-oriented. So maybe before we dive into this theory, I'll play the second part of the clip from Andrew Ng, which talks about what compares and contrasts agentic workflows to your more traditional single-shot based workflows.
I think when I started saying this, near the beginning of this year, it was a bit of a controversial statement. But now the word AI agents has become so widely used by technical and non-technical people. It's become a little bit of a hypey term. But so let me just share with you how I view AI agents and why I think they're important, approaching this from a technical perspective. The way that most of us use large language models today is with what's sometimes called zero-shot prompting. And that roughly means we would ask it to, given a prompt, write an essay or write an output for us. And it's a bit like if we're going to a person, or in this case, going to an AI and asking it to type out an essay for us by going from the first word, writing from the first word to the last word, all in one go without ever using backspace. So it's just right from start to finish like that. And it turns out people, we don't do our best writing this way, but despite the difficulty of being forced to write this way, our large language models do, not bad, pretty well. Here's what an agentic workflow is like. To generate an essay, we ask an AI to first write an essay outline and ask it, do you need to do some web research? If so, let's download some web pages and put it into the context of the large language model. Then let's write a first draft, and then let's read the first draft and critique it and revise the draft and so on. And this workflow looks more like doing some thinking or some research and then some revision, and then going back to do more thinking and more research. And by going round this loop over and over, it takes longer, but this results in a much better work output. So in some teams I work with, we apply this sort of agentic workflow to processing complex, tricky legal documents, or to do healthcare diagnosis assistance, or for do very complex compliance for government paperwork. And for many tasks, I'm seeing this drive much better results than was ever possible. And one thing I'm going to focus on in this presentation I'll talk about later is the rise of visual AI, where agentic workflows are letting us process image.
Okay, so the key difference that he highlighted was in the traditional approach, which is single shot or zero shot prompting, you're effectively asking the AI to do all its work in one sitting. With agentic workflows, you can essentially break down that goal into a series of steps or tasks, and actually have steps in that process where you can ask the agent to reflect on its outputs, critique its outputs, and iterate on them before producing the final answer. And that can be very handy for complex problem solving. And that's what, reality is, that's what most of the work we do is. It's not sitting down and doing it in one go. It's actually more complex in nature and requires multiple iterations before producing an answer. Okay, back to the slides. So let's talk about the key features. We compared and contrasted how agents are different to your traditional zero-shot prompting or chatbot-style solutions. We talked a bit earlier about tools and how tools allow agents to interact with the real world. It's really important. If you want to be autonomous, you need to have the ability to go and interact with the real world. Agents can also collaborate with humans by accepting inputs during execution. So this is really important. If you're automating processes, you may be asking AI to go and do a fairly significant chunk of that process. But there may be some circumstances where you don't want the trigger to be pulled by the AI. You may want a human in the loop to review its outputs before those outputs are then used for decision-making or actioning, particularly for high-risk use cases or reputational risk is a concern. Typically, you see organizations having a human-in-the-loop process, and that human-in-the-loop allows you to essentially have some form of manual override or oversight before the final outputs are sort of sent to the downstream systems or processes. Okay, so task management. Tasks are essentially a set of processes or instructions executed by the agents. And just if you think about it, a task is really just a set of instructions. So they have inputs and they have some defined instructions like a recipe on how to cook something, and an output, which might be the final sort of the dish that you're making. Okay, so tasks can be shared amongst agents, so you can distribute them, and agents can collaborate on a task. Just like a real team in the real world environment, you typically have people, so agents with some sort of job description. They probably specialize in a particular area or field or expertise. So that's their job definition, their backstory. They have a set of tasks to complete as part of their jobs. That's their priorities, their job descriptions, their goals, and they collaborate with one another. So team members collaborate with one another to achieve their own goals or collective goals, and they do so by interacting with systems, so the tools. So it's a nice analogy for comparing agentic teams and workflows to humans and how we operate in the day-to-day lives. Talked about tools. Have a look at the CrewAI website for all the different types of integrations they offer. You can also customize the tools. So if something doesn't work out of the box in a particular way that you want it to work, let's have a specific need where a tool doesn't exist to integrate with a particular platform or service. Let's say you want to integrate with a social media provider to post content and the tool doesn't exist. maybe have a look at the community, on the CrewAI community, and see if anyone else has built something similar in the past, or go and define your own. We're not going to get into customized tools today. That's for an advanced topic later on. But today we're just going to use out-of-the-box tools. Customizability is another key feature of CrewAI. They essentially give you the framework and they allow you to choose how you use it for any number of things. They define essentially the API, the configurations, the options, and it's up to you how you configure your crews, your agents, your tasks, and tools to achieve your special sort of individual needs. Okay, so the good thing is you don't necessarily have to know how to code. These crews can be assembled with very little code through a configuration driven approach. And that's where the YAML comes in. The YAML is really just a markup language which allows you to set up and configure these agents and tasks in plain, simple English, using parameters and configurations and flags rather than defining code necessarily. So we're actually going to look at how to set up a crew from start to end as part of the first exercise. Why is it relevant? Why use CrewAI? It doesn't just have to be CrewAI. There's many AI agentic workflows out there. CrewAI happens to just be one of the leading ones. It's pretty easy to get started, as I mentioned. Very few lines of code, and you can build a fairly sophisticated, capable system using this framework. It's scalable. It can solve very simple tasks to very, very complex enterprise-grade tasks. CrewAI has recently, I believe, launched an enterprise tier, so you can actually, instead of deploying and running your CrewAI locally on your machine, you can actually have CrewAI's platform host it for you on your behalf, and they handle all that complexity. And as I mentioned earlier, it's heavily customizable. We're not going to get into customization today, but if you need to, you can adapt it to your specific needs with fairly minimal effort because they've done a lot of the integration and tooling for you. Okay, here's what you can build with CrewAI. I've just listed this straight from the website. They've provided some examples of how other customers are using CrewAI to solve specific problems across a range of industries and different use cases. The one we're looking at today is mainly around marketing and automation. So it's doing content creation and research on our behalf. So we don't have to sit there behind a desktop doing all of this and grinding